because I don't have the luxury of doing one thing at a time.
How do you personally unwind and de-stress?
And somewhere I believe that there's not much difference between generations, by the way.
Do you take that
Yeah.
one thing as like a hobby of yours? Like I'm giving back to the students and all. Hello everyone, my name is Sophie Verma and today we have on our podcast joining us Mr. Jitender Panihar, CHRO of Fitelo, who have over 17 years of experience. So it's amazing to have you here. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Sophie. It's great being here, and I look forward to this conversation.
Before we get into these questions and all, I want to ask this one icebreaker question, right? You are surrounded with such high profile HR professionals and all. How do you personally unwind and de-stress?
So I do a couple of things, and I like to do all these things at the same time because I don't have the luxury of doing one thing at a time. So for the last 25 odd years, I get up at 5 every weekend while the world sleeps. I like to wake up at 5 and go for my cricket games. So I am a cricketer as well. So 2 days in a week, is dedicated to de-stressing, spending time on myself, a passion which I carry for close to about 25 odd years, and I hope to continue it a little longer till the time my body permits. Apart from this, I also like to spend time with management institutes and budding students. That's my way of giving back to the student community. That's where I feel at home.
So do you take that
Yeah.
one thing as like a hobby of yours? Like I'm giving back to the students and all that?
No, I don't think it's a hobby. I think it's a way to fulfill my purpose. I think that's something that I enjoy. In fact, I love being a lifelong student. Whenever I come back to campus, I feel at home, and that's the reason I like spending time with budding students and share my knowledge, share things which I couldn't have learned while I was growing up.
So moving on to these broad questions, right? How HR skills are essential for managing and engaging Gen Z, particularly like my semester, right? And how do they differ from those needed for previous generation?
So I would like to rephrase this question. I don't think you require HR skills. I think you require skills in general to be able to work with people from different generations, right? And these are life skills that people across generations do need to work with Gen Z. And somewhere I believe that there's not much difference between generations, by the way. While there's a lot of talk around that Generation Z works a little differently, they have stereotyped the generation, with certain traits, right? I have a slightly different take. I do believe that generations are not very different. The only difference is people are born in different era. So if I take my example, so I'm a millennial, and if I'm interacting with Gen Z, right, that is not very, very different than interacting with a Gen X or a Gen Y, right? The only difference is I was born in a different era wherein I had access to certain things which possibly my dad did not have. For example, he did not have access to computers. I had access to computers. And now the next generation has access to a lot more information. So the era is changing, right? And the reality is that if you ask this question to any generation, they will always believe and feel the following generation is a little less capable, or is a little casual, or takes little less ownership. Because, I mean, trust me, if you ask this question to my grandfather, he will tell the same thing about my dad. And if you ask this question to my dad, he will tell the same thing about me. That, I don't take ownership of things. I'm a little casual in life. And that's a stereotyping which has always happened. So I believe not a significant difference in the way we behave or we are, The differences are due to the era in which we are. The difference is the availability of information that they had and I have, and possibly someone will have. And how do you make use of this era? And how do you solve for that information? The skills that you require today will determine how well do I handle or manage Gen Z, or let's say the following generation. So I think it's all about being in their shoes. Whether it is Gen X, Gen Y, Millennial, Gen Z, it is all about understanding the generation, understanding what this generation needs, and then possibly solve for those needs. That's
That
my
was
answer.
a wonderful answer, by the way. How has your organization specifically improved its inclusiveness of, like, let's say, practices to align with Gen Z's diversified priorities?
So I think there are multiple steps that any organization has to take. Just to give you some context, my organization is anyways a diverse organization because it's 80% plus staffed by a particular gender, by a diverse gender. Uh, the employees are based in 25 plus states, which means it's a geographically diverse population, which makes it an inclusive organization. At the same time, people speak more than 15 plus languages. So if you look at the degree of diversity, it's a fairly diverse organization. And it makes things all the more interesting for us that how do we manage and how do we build interventions for such a diverse workforce. Couple of things we have done. Whenever we design any intervention, be it a talent intervention, be it a learning intervention, it's extremely important to be able to go to that particular audience and understand what they are looking for. So you have to first answer this question: what is in it for them? And that is when you start designing that intervention. So there are multiple interventions which have been taken up. Second, I would say, is the benefits that you offer to a segment. We carefully craft our benefits which can serve the purpose of a particular segment. So these are two very, very important things. And more than things, these are the approaches with which we look at any intervention, and we look at implementing any program.
Completely get it, sir. That was amazing. It was great to have you here. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you. Take care.